but Lover Show's raced away with 100 to go, and it's going to bolt in the Blue Diamond. Lover Show wins by 2.5 lengths.
Street Cafe in front, being ridden for dear life. Street Cafe is going to hang on and win, and Brendan's broken back. Street Cafe's won at a nectar fair, but it's plain as great. What you say, I've been and I'm there wrong.
Star Witness is flying home. Star Witness has got up to win. What a huge win.
She don't need diamonds. I love. She don't need diamonds, only diamonds.
Extreme Choice in front. Flying Artie with a length and a half to make up 100 left to go. Extreme Choice is going strongly though, and he'll score. Extreme Choice 2 lengths to Flying Artie. Big Quinella from the... Catchy leaving it late but starting to fly home. Pariah the leader. Catchy starting to flash home. Pariah in front. Catchy got him. Catchy the great filly has got up and beaten Pariah.
She don't need diamonds.
But Corta's blitzing them. She's raced away, and Corta wins the Blue Diamond Stakes by 3 or 4 lengths.
And it's plain as great. Do what you say. Now meanings are their own.
Hurricane Sky and Nick in front, and Hurricane Sky will win it. Hurricane Sky from Mr. Vitality by...
She'll stay at home. My love. She don't need diamonds. My love. She don't need diamonds, only diamonds.
Readout's Choice after Testarossa. Readout's Choice has grabbed the lead, 50 to go. Draws away, and Readout's Choice has won the diamond. Here comes Alingi sailing up the middle of the track. Wager in front. Alingi stride by stride. She's a mighty filly. And Alingi beats Wager by a length. An outstanding win. But it is Sepoy who's bolted away now with the Blue Diamond, opening up 4 lengths. Hello Bell running on well, but it's all Sepoy getting home hard masthead, but Sepoy bolted at the Diamond by about 5 lengths.
And Artorius is flying at the 50. Artorius pounces, bombs them and wins. Artorius for ingratiating following.
She don't need diamonds.
And now on PG Podcast Network, it's time for the year-round Carnival with Vince Accardi and your host, Racetrack Ralphy.
Yeah, with a bit of Chris Rea, rolling us in. Blue Diamond Day. Can't wait. 3 Group 1s tomorrow at Caulfield. Interesting conditions to deal with, and we're going to deal with it via Vince Accardi from Daily Sexuals. Good morning, mate.
Good morning, Ralphy. Interesting conditions. What are we talking about? Is there rain or something?
There's not rain, but there is up to 45 kilometre an hour northerly headwind. So,
jeez.
That screams. Be very careful about backing leaders. The rail's out 4 metres. So let's just put it under the normal lens and then we can discuss it and break it down as we do on the Friday. Information is as good as we can get it at 6 a.m.
Yeah.
When the rail's at 4 metres, how do you expect Caulfield to play?
Well, Ralphie, it's really crazy. From a lane binder's point of view, typically sort of 4 to 7 off the fence is where all the action is. So if that's the case, what are we looking at? We're looking at pretty much lanes 8 and wider is sort of where you want to be. And on paces are generally definitely advantaged, but if we do have the high winds, you're going to be looking for those for cover.
For cover with the slingshot runners. So we'll break that down individually. We may as well start with the first of the Group 1s, even though it's Blue Diamond Day, because it's a Futurity Stakes. It's a ripper. And Mr. B is always the starting point when it comes to a good quality race there. Vince, how are you seeing the race unfold for the Futurity Stakes, race 7?
Yeah, isn't it fantastic? The B's back, eh? They're backing up. Well, pace-wise, Ralphie, where is it? That's the first thing I asked myself. Where's the pace?
Well, Buffalo River was retired during the week. We need him to keep turning up.
Well, we're left with horses, like Pericles could potentially own the front. That's a possibility. What's light infantryman going to do? Is they going to be looking to go forward or not? But either way, it doesn't matter how you structure it up. I felt we're going to be very, very modest in the speed, Ralphie. We could be anywhere between sort of -1, 1.5 to maybe +1. So I'm forecasting +1 as a top-end speed, Ralphie. So I don't even know if we're going to go that fast, +1, but I thought I'd put it out there. Realistically, that's where we could end up at. It's not a big field. That sort of further makes me feel like we're not going to be with a high octane speed. Just good. It's still a good race pace.
I can't help thinking that the 3-year-old's going to be part of this pack, Private Life and Evaporate. Now, the interesting thing with Evaporate is this. Well, I suppose to a lesser extent, Private Life as well, but Evaporate's set for a New Zealand slot race. I think they're going to be keen to get a good hard run into him, which means go forward, and that's probably the opportunity for Mr. Brightside to get cover then as well, because you would think if these conditions are as predicted, you don't want to be Craig Williams doesn't want to, whatever he does, he doesn't want to be planted 3 wide, no cover tomorrow.
Well, he's a golden opportunity for that to happen for him, Ralphie, to be in a beautiful position. Oh, I know he would have liked to have drawn the absolute opposite, like where Pericles is. That would be like his preferred place. But I do see him going forward here and being in that forward position. I just do, Ralphie.
So he's $2.10. And what you'd expect too, because he's such a star. As I said before the last one, and I didn't even bother looking this up. I know it now. 19 times he's been $3 or shorter, and 19 times he's been top 2 when he's $3 or shorter. He's just amazing. 12 wins in 7 seconds have been the breakdown. He was picked off by an emerging horse in another Will Last Start. Like I said, the circumstances and conditions could be different tomorrow, but the question is he entitled to be that short as far as you're concerned?
Yeah, well, he is, because if you just look at his profile at the distance, Ralphie, I'd say it's bulletproof, and he'd be entitled to be even a lot shorter if he drew better.
Yep.
But I still don't see that as being his biggest challenge. He'll get across, he'll slot in, Ralphie. We're not going to be with a high-paced scenario. And here's the crazy part. If you can be in that forward position, that's where all the space is. There's no space in the middle. If you're looking at the middle part of the pack, you're in a lot of trouble. So horses are going to be forced most likely to go a little bit further back than ideal to make sure they're not going to be sort of caught wide with no cover. And the horses that are going to find themselves travelling, say, 2 lengths below benchmark to benchmark they can be wherever they want almost.
The horse on class who can definitely knock him off, or as I'm saying, if he brings his absolute A game, as I wish I win. Fascinating setup here. First up now, there's a caveat on top of all this. It's going to be 37 degrees tomorrow. Well, the prediction is 37 degrees.
Oh,
and
wow.
Peter Moody, I heard him on SEN yesterday, that the setup could well be that he goes to the races, and if the ground's rock hard and rattling, I think his words were rattling, Linda Meach is going to ride 1-2 races beforehand, and he'll be guided by her. And if it's really firm, he'll actually scratch and run him in the Newmarket first up. So it's a bit of a headache on a pre-race, be it Friday or even tomorrow morning when we discuss it.
Yeah, well, probably the crazy part for me is, I guess he's always been zoned in on the sprint races of recent times, but it's not common in recent times that he begins his campaign first up. We have to go a fair way back for a 1,400 metre first up. We have to go back to 22, Ralphie. To see when he first stepped out at that sort of distance race. And this is basically
23 actually. Yeah, 23 to Mr. Brightside.
Yep, that's right. And I just sort of look at it and say, okay, well, if he runs to that level, he has got victory. I can see maybe with a little bit of give in the grounds, probably. I'm just sort of sitting back here saying that 1,400 metres should be golden for this horse, absolutely golden. And I'm just sort of a little bit taken back by what you just said, that if it's really firm ground, they're going to scratch. I mean, I feel this horse loves that sort of conditions.
Well, he loves it on his profile. I guess what Peter was communicating was he's now 6. Clearly, there's been a reason for why they've spaced him, and clearly he's had some issues behind the scenes. I think we could read between the lines, no problem. So, that's why, his amazing Golden Eagle win, why since then he's pretty much been kept to sprint distances because clearly, actually it was well documented. He was born with turned-in legs, so they've obviously had all sorts of issues. So, on class, so that's what we have to deal with.
Yeah, well, he's a threat no matter what. I sort of kept him in the top 4 at the moment, Ralphie, but I was sort of like on the fringe with him. I just felt that it has been a while, and here we are, 1,400 metres first up. Is that exactly spot on? Now, I don't believe we've ever seen the very best of him. And again, now listening to you, we may never get to see that either. What was the very best he could do? Because I always felt that, more grounds, his bigger edge. But if he's got challenges, then, here we are on the shorter courses.
Well, the market's saying the next two, the Blue Jackets, and they're drawn 1 and 2, and this could be vital tomorrow. So Pericles, drawn barrier 1 for Blake Shin. Does he lead or does he go beauty? You've given me barrier 1. I'll let one horse cross me and box seat. And probably Ben Mellum's thinking exactly the same. I'll just tag Pericles, whatever Pericles does.
Yeah. Well, I'll look at it like this. If you look at Damien Lane on Private Life, go forward. Pericles go forward. I would say Damien 9 times out of 10 is going to give it up to Blake. And Blake will go to the front and probably control. But the challenge Blake will have will be Craig Williams, because Craig will probably sit right outside him.
Yeah.
And that's going to make the game dynamic. So Damien might think he's in a great spot then. But the reality is, I see Pericles getting a golden run up front, totally controlling with Blake. And whilst Craig's going to be up there, I don't believe he's going to be able to control from that position. I believe Blake's going to have the control. Then it's going to get down to who's the better horse.
And Tom Kitten, for our members, we mentioned during the week that his trial was right on point for a big prep. Worth noting, now he was super first up last time. That was his first run as a gelding. I've got no proper stats on this, but I can say we've seen it many times that horses improve at their second prep as a gelding. So, what sort of lens have you got on Tom Kitten here?
Yeah, well, for Tom, it's all going to get back down to where he's going to be positioned running, because he's come out through the trials like looking fantastic, Ralphie. Absolutely looking fantastic. Typically, he's a 3 to 5 lengths off the lead pace. I do feel this is where he's going to also find himself. Now, that may not turn out to be the best scenario, because you're still going to have to get around some traffic. But if we've got high winds, it's going to play in his favour, and expect a big finish.
Sum up the 3 odds for me, please. Private Life and Evaporate.
Yeah. Well, Private Life, 100%, as we know, Ralphie. We are still in a trend upwards scenario. We don't have a ceiling on him. And I do feel that he's better than Evaporate, in my view, potentially. So if I'm sitting from that perspective, I'm going to be a lot keener to see what Private Life does. And he's in a situation where I feel is going to get a golden position, tagging Blake Sheen and Craig Williams.
And finally, unless you tell me there's something else you want to speak about, I just want to ask about Place to Carousel. This mare's been, I think, to the eye, trialling very, very nicely. We probably haven't seen the best of her. She's in her 3rd prep now, lightly raced as an import with Team Friedman. I've heard Sam Friedman again on SCN say that they've had some struggles with her, but they think they've got her right mentally as well as physically. So what type of talent levels this Place to Carousel got?
Well, the big thing with this horse will be this, Ralphie. I'm probably forecasting the opposite of what they'd like.
Yep.
They'd be looking for a fast pace. If they get that, that's going to help this horse a lot. But if there isn't, I'm not sure it's going to be able to out-kick a bunch of horses that'll be midfield or further back. And therefore, the chances are all going to come down purely to luck. And even that might not be enough. So it's going to be pace-related for me. But has the horse got potential? Of course, it's got plenty of potential. You only have to go back and look what it did. Its very first race start in Australia, where it can produce a +2 with a huge finish. But it's 2,000 metres, not 14.
So in summary, we'll talk business tomorrow. What's your thinking on the Friday for the Futurity Stakes?
Well, from where I'm sitting right now, it looks a race between Pericles and Mr. Brightside. That's the competition, yeah.
Well, Pericles puts him in the race at big odds there.
Yep.
Blue Diamond Stakes. Okay, big field. Let's assume there's a headwind, or let's assume the track isn't dynamite leaders. Now, and I only put that on the table because I've had a deep dive into this race, Vince, over the last decade. There's a real profile to it, and that is 2-year-olds, and there's a logic to the profile, and then you could hear me out from there.
Yep.
But 2-year-olds leading at 1,200 metres, that it's the end of their distance range at this time of year, and particularly at the moment, there hasn't been a lot on the board there. You want to be on good jockeys who sling out into the lanes and have some closing speed late. So often on paces are really challenged, and like I said, the only outliers have been either when the track's been doctored. There was one year, I think Tagaloa won that year when it was real inside bias, and the other one was Extreme Choice, who was a superstar. Vince, so far, I don't think there's any superstars that have emerged yet.
No, it's so... Yeah, maybe we're going to see him in Sydney on the weekend. But realistically, we're going to shape up somewhere between -1 and -3. This could now lead to benchmark, Ralphy. Could we see anybody turn up and run benchmark +1 or 2? Well, the way the race is set up, it probably does have the opportunity for a few of these horses to potentially put down great performances. And if we have this situation with the wind and they're getting cover, then this could help the key chances.
So we'll start with the favourite, Field of Play. He's probably faultless. That they chose to give him a run at 1,200 metres in December, which, as I said, that's the end of the distance range now. So in December, it really is testing, and he was dominant. Yet to do a lot on the clock, but I would assume that the stable couldn't be happier with this type of profile, given he's then come back, won the Prelude, and probably this is on point for his grand final tomorrow.
Yeah, well, where I sort of see the plus signs for this particular horse is, you look at that last run, travelling 1.4 lengths below benchmark. It's a nice pace, Ralphy, for 1,100. Had the bit of the easing in the middle between the 8 and the 4. He pretty much slowed a couple of lengths and then rebounded hard. It probably made his 1,100 look a touch softer than what it could have been. And I feel that this is where his improvement's going to come to give him that opportunity to break benchmark. And he's definitely one of the horses that I feel is primed to break benchmark.
I'll go in market order here. There's probably 3 distinct form lines here. Firstly, Tempted is about $7 range. It brings some Sydney form down. I dare say the clear thinking, and you probably touched on it when you said about Sydney tomorrow. At the moment, the Sydney 2-year-olds are better than the Melbourne 2-year-olds, and the Blue Jackets have probably thought, well, at the moment, nothing's really jumped up in Melbourne. Let's send her down there. So what's Tempted done so far?
Yeah, well, I'm sure Williams would be pretty happy with this ride. Well, what it has been demonstrating is the horse relaxes beautifully. You look at that run at Rosehill, 4.9 lengths below benchmark, first split time, excellent move in the mid-race, very solid, 7.6 mid-race squeeze, Ralphy. Last 400 still broke benchmark with a +1 point. A little bit of dip, in the shape between the 4 and the 2, but nothing to, sort of say that's going to change things. Where I feel all the edges are going to come is 1,200 metres, number 1. Number 2, I feel that there's more this horse can do through the first split time and still be able to finish very strongly, and has got the perfect setup now. 2 race starts, one in December, one in February. Looks like it's going to peak, Ralphy. And I also feel this is a horse that has the possibility of well and truly breaking benchmark as well.
So what you've described with her, to me, is that typical Blue Diamond winner. She'll be off pace, she relaxes well, gun jockey, good stable, and will fling into those better lanes. That really, it does look like she's got that right profile, given what you've said.
Yep, absolutely.
Cherish Me. tell you what, I've been doing these with you for a while now, Vince, and the horses that have only had one start, and even if they look great, and this was dominant at Geelong, they do struggle. I heard Kieran Maher say that he would have liked to have given her an extra run, but they had to abort that one and just give her that barrier trial. So it probably says not the ideal setup, but also it's Kieran Maher, Jamie Mellon, and maybe she's got some big upside.
Well, couldn't have done it much easier. I mean, yes, the final scorecard was pretty soft, 5.9 lengths below benchmark. But the horse, realistically, in that last race at Geelong, 2.5 below benchmark first split time, slightly slower between the 8 and the 4, going 2.8. It was all about the 400-metre finish, and it was strong, Ralphy, 3.5 above benchmark. Like all things, if I'm even though when I look at what the hurdle rate is, it's around that 3 lengths below benchmark, 3.5 lengths below benchmark. If you look at it from that perspective, you'd say, well, the horse can easily find 2 lengths and be at that level. I say yes as well, but I'm looking for a benchmark or higher figure to win it. And I'm not sure, even in Maher's hands, is this horse going to just come out and improve 6? So I'm a little bit on the fence with it for that reason.
Then there's the 2 fillies from the Prelude. Palm Angel beat home My Gladiola. My Gladiola was favourite. And while on face value, and it is always an obvious starting point, the Colts ran faster than the fillies. What you were keen to point out on the Monday podcast, and we'll put some meat on the bones here, Vince, is that this was an unusual race shape. They really dropped anchor in that day.
Oh, Ralphy, it was massive. 2.3 below first section. Nice solid pace. 8.8 below benchmark between the 8 and the 4. We're talking about 1,100 metre race, and you've got a 6.5 length slowdown. And then it's picked itself up and gone plus 2.9 last 400. There's no question that the performance was miles better. Now, the IVR figures come in 3.5 below. I looked at the race matrix. I probably, on a race matrix point of view, again, a little bit tricky about how you can, really pin it. But I'm pinning that runs a lot closer to 0.7 below and more to come. And this is one horse that I have a high expectation of smashing through the benchmark barrier tomorrow.
As in Palm Angel?
Yeah, Palm Angel. And I just feel, Ralphie, the position in running, there's a massive chance this horse could get a golden run in transit. I mean, drawn 1, doesn't have to do a lot, a little bit of cover, got plenty of time coming around that turn to get out and get going.
So then a bit of imagination is required on a couple of these, and
yep.
They're both in the same stable. Tycoon and they've both got a similar profile in this respect. Miss Celine and Tycoon Star. Because they both won on debut,
yes.
The stable have been able to just pull the pin and build and say, grand final day is all we care about from the time it comes back into the stable over summer. And that looks like, and this stable has got an amazing history in this race. So I give them great respect, even though they're big odds. Firstly, Tycoon Star, we were all over how good his trial was. And then we said, well, hang on, race day, it looks like they'll just ride him quiet. No, they did ride him quiet. So what type of capability and potential have you got for Tycoon Star here? Who's around about $20 odds.
And is that right, Blinker's first time?
Blinker's first time.
Yeah.
It's grand final day.
Well, there's no question. If you look at the Caulfield run, 5.6 below benchmark first split time. Pretty cruisy in terms of what it was asked to do. No real significant moves between the 8 and the 4 with the horse. Just a couple of lengths. Last 400 plus 1.7. The crazy part, there was a taper at the end, Ralphie, last 200 metres. Now, usually with a lot of horses, when you get this sort of taper with a setup, it generally means they've got conditioning builds still to come from the run. Now, can we take the same position with a 2-year-old? That half-length drop-off that sort of setup? Is that right? Or is this the whole strategy around why they're putting the blinkers on so they can get that explosion and the horse not tapering the way it did? So that's probably the key around this horse, whether I feel the blinkers are going to make a difference. Because if it wasn't blinkers first time, I would say, 20 to 1, 50 to 1 is probably right.
And then there's Miss Celine. The other case I want to make for her is this big closing speed out wide on debut. inside draws 2 runs this time in these fillies races, and it's grand final day tomorrow. So again, is there an opportunity for her to be slinging out into the lanes and showing some closing speed, given, again, the lens that they're only interested in grand final with this filly?
Yeah. Well, here we are. Yeah, here we are, Ralphy. We've got a horse that's 3.5 lengths below benchmark early. Big slowdown as well, which was just the way things panned out in that particular race. 5.5 lengths slowdown in the mid-race. The question you have to look at is this, Ralphy. Could this, improve enough to beat a horse like the one we put at the top, which is the Palm Angel? Can it really?
All right. So, in summary, what's your thoughts? The day before race day.
Big chance for me that I'm going to upgrade this race, Ralphie. But the way I'm looking at it is, Palm Angel tempted, possibly Field the Play, My Gladiola. They're the runners that I'm sort of really interested in as being the main threats. Probably, the other one, only because it looks like a golden run, is Devil Knight, but that's where I'm at. I'm expecting one of these horses to win. I don't feel anything else is going to come out of left field and surprise. Now, maybe the wins will do something, Ralph, that will create some sort of carnage, but just the way I'm seeing with the riders that are on these horses, you got Blake Shin, Craig Williams, Ethan Brown, very hard riders to knock, Ralphie. I just feel hard for them to get it wrong. Oakley
Plate's an absolute cracker this year. He got good depth to it. There's a couple other little bit of different form now that I Am Me, and there was another horse that name escapes me at the moment that was scratched from last week for this. You've got pace up front. You're going to have some slingshot runners. You got some lightly weighted horses on the rise like She's Bulletproof. It's just a beauty. So, how are you expecting the pace for this race to unfold?
I feel it's going to be good pace. Golden Boom, Estrialia being key runners. I was just looking this morning, going back and just revisiting that early shape line. When you sort of put the lens on it, specifically at this sort of the short course races, it seems to me that somewhere around +1 or 2 is the natural speed for Estrialia, Golden Boom. But this is an Oakley Plate. So how much more are we going to be able to add to that? So then I looked at that second line, and the second line all looks solid around the benchmark. So this means we could have additional energy burn of 1 to 3 lengths. So I wouldn't be surprised if we end up finding ourselves running 3 to 5 lengths faster than standard. But then I sit back and say, Blake Shin, is he going to go back? Is he going to say he's going to be at the front and Damien's going to say, no, I'm going to look to try and sit? Or are they going to reverse the roles and they're going to fight each other? I don't feel that they will fight each other. Probably it's going to leave the golden opening for the horses that are taking the sit. So I'm looking for the horses that are sitting, typically 2.5 to 5 lengths from the leader, as being the winners.
And probably more so if that headwind's in play.
Yep.
So let's start. There's 2 mares who are the favourites, and they're top and bottom of the weight. So Estriella and She's Bulletproof. The one thing I probably should add to it, because you mentioned, she's got the ability to lead clearly in Estriella, and at a jump out, Vince, a trial, and I know you've clocked it. They got her to settle, and Kieran Mars mentioned this in an interview. So they're really teaching her to just relax a little bit in the run. Now, this time last year, she was pretty explosive just in 3-year-old company. Her spring campaign was just okay, but if she can properly use a coiled spring like close instead of wasting it early, she's a serious talent.
Well, this is it, Ralphie. This is the key. You know, and I know there's been a couple of setups in races where the intention's been very clear, aggressive up front.
Yep.
And they don't need to be super aggressive here, but it's hard for this horse not to be in a forward position, Ralphie. It's very hard. Because if they go back or try and get a sit, well, it won't disadvantage the horse. If they could be in the same running line as someone like I Am Me, then probably it's in the golden spot. But you got this issue Damian Lane. What do you really think he's going to do? He's going to try and see if he can coax Blake to lead.
And that's on natural speed, of course.
Purely on natural speed. So if they try and work against that, there could be a little bit of fighting happening. So there'd have to be injection coming from everywhere else. So, yeah, maybe if they get to sit, this would be, well, that's what they need to do to win, Ralphie.
I dare say this is a real target for Estrella, but Kira Ma's got 3 runners. She's bulletproof. Been up for a while, Vince, but a genuine talent. And as we keep saying with these type of mares, sometimes they can keep improving too.
Yeah. So coming from this stable, I just hope they didn't peak last start.
It's got that feeling to it, hasn't it?
Yeah. So if they peaked last start, then it's going to be a challenge because it was unbelievable, that run. It was outstanding, absolutely outstanding, and demonstrated that it's up to this level.
Yes.
That's what I love, right? But we are coming back 100 metres now, and we're starting to get that pattern shape. And then I'm looking at this stable and saying, has this stable got the ability to get it to peak again? Because I really do feel that it's peaked last start, and they just might have missed out. The 21 days is fantastic. Coming back to the 1100, I'm not a negative on that, Ralphie. Definitely not a negative. And I'm saying to myself, goodness me, probably they have found the secret. 30 days, a little bit more fresh, boom, exciting. You only have to go look at that Bendigo run first up 1100. That was probably almost like a mini setup race to an Oakley Plate in terms of what happens. 0.3 above benchmark first section, huge race in the mid-move, in the mid-race going plus 5.9 and still reasonably solid last 400, plus 2.7. That sort of gives you the nucleus to say the horse has got the potential, but I hope the stable haven't peaked too early, that's all.
If I gave you the mystical $20 voucher, you'd be on Estrella rather than She's Bulletproof, I take it, given your queries.
Personally, I wouldn't be on either of them.
Yep.
Yeah, because so that $20, I'll put it on me.
Which we'll get to now.
Yeah.
So we were pretty keen last week in the Lightning, and of course they've scratched it. To me, that's a huge lead. They didn't want to waste a run, and now they got Nash, and now they got a low draw, which means Nash can get the sit. What type of profile you got for IME?
Well, let's just look at its 2 recent 1100 metre runs, Ralphie. September, Randwick, 1100. First section, 3.5 lengths below benchmark. Okay, race pace is -1. 8 to the 4, plus 4.4. Last 400, plus 4.2. Run before that, 7th of the 9th September. 2.9 lengths below benchmark. That was 1,000 metres. 3.5 above between the 8 and the 4, plus 6.9 last 400. I feel the 1100 is gold. Absolutely gold for this horse. And massive possibility of getting the absolutely A1 run from Barrier 2 and Nash. I'm just sitting there thinking to myself, well, this horse is going to be in the perfect position all the way in transit. 1 split wins.
Those 2 narrow wins, if you're just looking at your at the full guide and say, well, it's a narrow win at Rarwick, yeah, it was over. One was over Bella Nepetita, the other one over Steffi Magnetica, both Group 1 winners. So she's been a proper horse the whole way through, and this is really an opportunity for her to add that Group 1 win, and it sounds like you've got a bit of confidence. Let's touch on a couple others. Ray Magnerio is just a beauty, puts the mouthguard in every time, and if he gets the right run, he's really far away.
Well, he's another runner that's just been fantastic and ran superbly, I felt, last start. May have been, overlooked by some. I certainly didn't overlook the horse, Ralphie. I thought it was a genuine chance in that race. Probably the interesting part for me was the setup of how that race was run in the end. 7.9 lengths below benchmark first section. They're all sitting up. 3.4 below between the 8 and the 4. And again, this was just the way the grounds were on the day, but that last 400 metres was electric. You ask yourself, how do you look at the 77 days? What's that stable done? Was that like a freshen, spell, booming first up run? Here we are, 14-day back up. Does the horse now just magically surge dramatically upwards and run at least to the level that it did at Caulfield back in September when it produced a 1.7 running first 3? Is that what we're going to see? Or are we going to just see a sideway run? And I'm also just questioning a little bit with the stable about, I just felt the horse ran superbly. It wasn't a peaking run, but it was a high level performance in the end about how well it finished the last 400. If it runs to the Caulfield run, which is my expectation, that it could run around that 1.7, maybe a touch more, that's not going to be enough to win.
And then we get to Jimmy Star, the third of the Mar runners. He's got Estriella, he's got IME, and Jimmy Star is a booming closer. And if tomorrow, as predicted, that the headwinds are in play big time, this horse in a slingshot situation could be very, very dangerous.